Hey guys, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are going to take a glorious look at my brand new McLaren Senna. And yes, I know you probably thought to yourself, well, how can it be brand new? It's a 2019, but this is one of the last, if not the last Senna left unregistered in the United States that was sitting at a McLaren dealer, which makes it pretty freaking special, right? And I'm going to sum up this car because this isn't my first Senna, so this isn't my first review of the car, in three key categories. Why are the windows so damn small and stupid? 2, why is the spoiler so damn big? And 3, who did they make these Senna seats for? That's pretty much the sum up of what makes a Senna a Senna. A giant spoiler, incredibly tiny windows where you can't even get the pussy magnet, and if I may add, seats that are truly not bad for your back, but rather damaging to your asshole. So if you've ever wondered why I would ever go back and buy what I call to be the second probably ugliest car they've ever made over $1 million, well, if you guessed money, that's probably because you've been following me for a while. As you know, car hacking isn't all about things we love, but rather how to safely park our money into things we can drive. And this is a perfect example of what $200,000 in profit looks like, which we're going to take a look at the numbers very soon as well. But first, let's talk a little bit about what makes this Senna specifically different from my first one. So you may remember my very first Senna, which was exactly a year and 2 days previous to me paying for this one, and it was the carbon exposed Senna purchased from Dan I Am on Instagram. Now, that particular Senna had a 1.4 million sticker, all carbon exposed, meaning everything you see here in paint was carbon, and unless you looked up close, it was very hard to decipher carbon from black. So it gave it a very black feeling, something I didn't really love that much, but the carbon was truly beautiful up close. And the accents on the car were blue, which made it, again, very different, but yet very difficult for a person not trained from far to differentiate the car from just the black car. Now, in this particular case, this was a car that I had purchased to flip, literally to make some money and move on. I had announced that on my channel. One of the things about this channel specifically is that I never bullshit about cars I own. I legitimately have bought this for me, and I made it clear when I bought the last Senna that it wasn't for me to drive, but rather for me to make money on. And so in this particular case, this is my personal Senna used right here for me over the next year or longer should I decide to keep it. But primarily, it is a car that was bought not only as an investment, but also as a car that I plan to drive, modify, and put miles on as well, which is pretty exciting to add it to the collection, including the SVJ, the Ford GT, the Pista, the GT3 RS, and of course the Rolls-Royce Dawn, the G63, 2 Uruses now, an incoming STO, SF90, and God knows how many other cars. But for now, today we're looking at this, and do not forget that right now we are still having the greatest sale of the year for Exotic Car Hacks. So this is your chance to learn how to hack cars, meaning cut your ownership cost to 0, or literally be profitable on every car deal you make by learning the car hacking methodology. Literally by clicking the description, you'll find a link, and you can join Exotic Car Hacks for as little as $197 instead of $997. And that's not me going crazy, that's me giving you a chance to learn how to do this. But going back to this particular car, do not forget that this car is now Vermillion red, something that we don't see a lot of Sennas. As I Googled and searched, I had not yet seen another Vermillion red car. This car came from Long Island Sports Car. If you watched my last YouTube video, you saw me paying for the car live, literally on my phone. I did the wire transfer and I showed you guys how that looked. But this particular car is, I have never seen another Vermillion red Senna, which I assume is probably the only Vermillion red Senna in the United States, which is pretty cool altogether. What's even cooler about this particular car, and I want to kind of point you to this, outside of just some of the carbon stuff that's pretty cool, is the $49,000 bespoke interior. Now, what does that mean? Well, most of these cars have a different color, whatever interior. This one has this beautiful camel colored interior, which really complements the red well. But one of the things they've done here, which I think really illuminates the cabin, and every single Senna should do. My last one didn't have this. Take a look inside and take a look at the gloss carbon fiber. This near $50,000 option to turn matte carbon into gloss, not from no carbon to carbon, but rather just change the carbon color from matte to gloss, is a must-have. This is absolutely art-like. When you get in the cabin now, you get to see this beautiful, incredible carbon interior, and it really pops because of the gloss rather than the matte. And I think that's something that was really missing in the last one. Now, on the other side, though, you'll see the basic options like the Bespoke wing. You'll see options like the B&O sound system. But you'll see different options that were available on the carbon car and not this one, such as this particular foil here was made out of gold versus this one is not. But one of the things you realize when you look at Sennas, from my perspective anyways, having seen now so many on the road, is that brighter colors tend to really bring out the lines on this car much more than these dark colors. Now, one thing I will say is that you'll start to notice, the more you use the car, that there's a lot of components that work, a lot of components that don't really work on the car. What I mean by that is that I think on the surface, right now we're looking at it in race mode, which means it's completely down. You can press a button and it literally comes down and drives this way. It would be near impossible driving the regular street, as you'd crack your front diffuser here fairly easily doing that, and it wouldn't make sense. But some of the things that, and we'll go in depth about some of the features of the car, etc., but I think some of the things we notice right away about this car in general is that when I look at a Senna, I basically ask myself, okay, it's a hypercar. Okay, it's $1 million. What else can you buy for $1 million? And the argument with the Senna isn't that it's a good or bad car, because we can all have some subjective idea about how cool it looks. Some of us would think it looks amazing. Others would say it's ugly. Others would say the wing's too tall. This is too weird. It's too boxy. Taste and design are subjective, right? And I get that. But there is the idea that you're paying $1 million and what do you get for it? You get a car that's incredibly fast around the track. But let me point this out. This SVJ is technically faster. Now, let's see. It's not as fast and straightaway as that. It's not as usable as that for a couple of reasons. One, you have tiny windows, partially because they can't go into the glass here, which is really cool, but the seats are near impossible to get in and out of. And if I may say, on the Senna itself, you hear rocks everywhere, and the cost of an accident or an incident occurring is significantly more on this car than this particular car. I'm not saying an accident like you're going to crash into something, but there's also other flaws with the car. And the core flaw, if you take a look, is a lot of this leather here, even though it's like near brand new, is already coming off. And it takes us back to this very core essence or problem called craftsmanship, something McLaren has suffered with the 720S, the 650S, the 675 LT. The craftsmanship of most McLarens just sucks. And it just doesn't live up to the $1 million hype. And so it leads me to the next point. Is the Senna worth $1 million? So I'll position it the same way as to why I bought one. If this is what you consider to be an incredible value for $1 million, I would say that that SVJ is 10 times the value at technically 30% less money, which makes a lot of sense to then look for an SVJ Roadster. Where the Senna shines in is its stunt factor, and it's basically driving around the track. So the majority of people who buy these cars won't track them. We know this. This is a fact. Most people that buy hypercars don't track them. I don't track my cars either, and I'm not going to. So the majority of these cars are basically driven on the street. Is it special enough to warrant $1 million price? I think it looks special enough. I think it gets looks everywhere. I think people come up and talk to you about it. But does it bring $1 million worth of value? And the short of it is, I don't necessarily think so. I think where it shines significantly well compared to other cars is that you're talking about a modern day hypercar under warranty. This is still under warranty for 2 years. And in addition to that, a car that is newer with newer tech, and more importantly, has more of a record of being driven and actually catches on fire too. We know that since we've seen so many videos of doing it. But I think the catching on fire happens to all cars on one basis alone. People sit there and romp on their cars. Whenever a monkey from the street comes and says, hey, can you rev it, man? Can you rev it so we can hear it? the idiot, you know, circus basically owner, the person that owns the car that decides I'm going to make some circus tricks here and make some noise, that guy is the reason that car gets on fire, right? When you sit there and you romp on your car, it's very likely that it's going to create a spark and create a fire on any car, especially cars like this or the SVJ, so you have to be extremely careful not to fall victim to that. But back to my argument, and we're going to go in detail in the next video about the features of the car as well, or the cool things. But the argument here on the Senna specifically is that I just don't see the value over the SVJ Roadster. Now, if you're me and you can have both, that's an incredible car to drive, that's an incredible car to own, but that's just the problem. I just don't see the value of the Senna in the $1 million range as a driver's car. I see its value as an investment car because I believe it's highly undervalued. I think the dramatic look and the drama on the street and the noise and the way it behaves itself will eventually warrant a $1.5 to $1.7 million price, but I just don't see that yet. And what I do see, however, is that the demand for that is significantly more than this, which is why these cars don't skyrocket, and this one is now worth $250,000 more than I paid. So in short, is the Senna an incredible hypercar? I would say it's an incredibly affordable hypercar. Is the Senna the best value around or under $1 million? I would say that significantly holds more value. So that's my overall view a year later and 2 Sennas later. And next time on Exotic Car Hacks, we're going to break down some of the features of this car, what makes it exciting, and then of course we're going to take a look as well about, is it really usable or is it all bullshit? So check us out next time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.